Are you moving to Kansas City and you need to know the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, you know, all the details, all the things you'd want to know before you packed your bags, moved across the country, and ended up in a big city making a big costly mistake? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to share with you everything I know from my 40 years of living here, my 20 years in real estate, and the hundreds and hundreds of buyers that I've helped do the exact same thing that you're looking at doing right now. Also, go ahead, hit that button, ring that bell. That way you're notified every time one of these videos comes out. And make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to share with you a really cool tool that's going to help you find your perfect spot in Kansas City, and you don't want to miss it. All right, let's break into the weather. But first, if you're a Californian, go ahead and chime in down below and let me know what it is exactly you guys say to each other whenever there's nothing to say. Because in Kansas City, we can always just talk about the weather. That's because it's constantly changing and it can be rather extreme. Like middle of summer, you know, July, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of 95 to 100 degree days, sometimes 100 to 103. And that doesn't sound like a big deal because you hear about Arizona being that hot, but you also hear about that dry heat in Arizona. We have the exact opposite. We'll actually be, 100 degree heat and 100% humidity, which means you're literally dripping in sweat and it can be absolutely miserable. So you definitely need to know that if you're not a fan of humidity and heat, it's pretty rough here at times. Then we can talk about the winter. Now the winters, they can be brutally cold too. We get a lot of wind. If you look at the way the weather hits, there's this northwestern current that hits, and we always, it's like that southwestern current also, they just line up right at Missouri. In fact, you'll see a lot of times that the north side of the city gets totally different weather than the south side. I don't understand, I'm not a meteorologist, but it's almost like that river creates some sort of break there. So anyways, in the winter though, you very well could have 1 week where you're snowed in, a lot of freezing rain commonly, and then you'll also have certain weeks where it's like 70 on Monday, it's -5 on Thursday, and that all happened in the same week. So you'll hear about other cities talking about, ask me in an hour what the weather is and all that stuff. Kansas City, it really is that way. Kansas City is going to be known for having tornadoes. We're right on the edge of the plains. Now, if you go a little further west, tornadoes are a little more common. Obviously, Oklahoma's always got them. We're seeing more and more tornadoes across the south of the country. We're actually seeing less tornadoes in Kansas City. So the last tornado that I saw or been around or heard of, specifically was probably in 2008, 2012, that range there. So it's been a good 10 years since we've had any major destruction in the city. And the thing you should really know about tornadoes is, yes, they're dangerous, but they're not like hurricanes. So it's one little thing and they kind of come hopping in, and one house might be affected, but the house next door didn't experience anything. So yes, they're scary, but it's not quite like hurricanes or earthquakes where everybody's affected. So we live with them. It hasn't really been much of an issue for me. There are some pros to the weather, and that is if you like 4 seasons, because we have all 4 of them, again, sometimes in the same week, unlike California where you have 1 season and it's the beautiful one, right? As we like to joke. Can you believe this weather? Yeah. Whew. It's like the sun took a vacation, and I might have to put on a light jacket or something. If you like 4 seasons, we've got them. It's almost like a buffet of weather at times, and we really do have all 4 seasons sometimes in the same week. So if that's something that's appealing to you, you're definitely going to get it here. You get to see the leaves change, you get to see the flowers bloom. We get that typical, Disney experience, Bambi in the spring with all the animals twitter-pated. That's really what it's like to live here. But again, be mindful that it's very extreme at times with the heat and the cold, the wind, the snow, the rain, all of it can be very extreme here. If you're anything like me, or rather my wife, travel is very important to you, so let's break into it. First off, we do have a big airport, but we don't have a lot of direct flights. They're working on that. I'll get into that in a little bit, but you are going to find that connecting flights are more popular. Of course, if you're flying to Orlando or flying to LA, Vegas, those types of destinations, obviously there's direct flights. And in any hub city, we're going to probably have a direct flight to a hub city. But if you're wanting to fly to kind of a more obscure thing, you're definitely going to be getting a connecting flight. In fact, if you're going to Cancun, you're probably going to be landing in Charlotte, Dallas, or Denver before you make your final flight. That makes your flights a little more expensive. You might look at maybe $50 to $75 more per ticket for those connecting flight cost versus whenever I'm looking at other cities. Sometimes we'll actually look at staying in another city for a couple nights and then flying over to Mexico or something. So the location of our airport is in an odd spot. The city built it in the northwest corner of the city, and then development really hasn't happened. It's currently underway. Most of the businesses are located on the south end of the city, and I think the city thought there was going to be a development, but there's still a border war between Missouri and Kansas. Missouri, the city of Kansas City, is on that side, so they have a lot more expenses for the tax base, whereas on the Kansas side, they've been able to give better benefits to businesses, so you'll see more corporations on that side. What's odd about that, though, is the airport's on the other side of the city, which means when people fly in for conventions, they're usually driving across the whole city. We do expect that to change, and we'll talk about that in other videos, but that entire northwest corner right now, that's where the big building boom's looking like it's coming in. There's gonna be a lot of jobs when we have a new airport. Again, we'll get into that in a minute. Now, with that new airport, there is a pickup and drop-off fiasco going on. So last month, we actually flew out to Vegas out of the old airport, flew back, and we landed in the new airport. What's going on is the old airport, we had multi-terminal, and you could literally pull up right in front of the gate, drop somebody off, do your hugs and goodbyes on the sidewalk. In the old days, you'd go in and actually watch out the window as their plane took off, like in the old movies. But of course, 9/11 ruined that, so they have finally built a new airport and tore that one down. What that means, though, is that people are still used to pulling up to the sidewalk and going inside and looking for their loved one, which means there's been a backup of cars, and it's all over the news right now. Hopefully, by the end of the year, that gets worked out. Now, if you're thinking about doing road trips, which I'm a big fan of road trips, that's another big con. Your big cities are going to be about 8 hours away. It's about 8 to 9 hours to Denver, to Nashville, to Chicago, to Dallas. Your closest cities are going to be Des Moines, Omaha, or St. Louis. Generally, we go to Omaha for the zoo. Not a lot of people travel to Des Moines, and people do go to St. Louis, but definitely not as much as other major cities. So flying's a big deal in Kansas City, or you're going to be sucking it up and doing some longer road trips. Now, the state has lots of cool things to do, so most people that are doing road trips are generally doing it within the state. So some of the pros, let's break into those. We have a brand new airport, if I didn't mention it a few times earlier, but it is an awesome new airport. We expect a lot of development to come in around it, and they are working hard on putting out bids right now to get international direct flights. That's part of their plan for the city, is to bring more conventions in. So I also imagine we'll have some convention centers and more development around the airport and away from the Johnson County side. But of course, they planned on that working out that way 40, 50 years ago, and it hasn't worked out that way. So we'll see what happens, but there is a ton of development already going on around there. We do have a ton of Southwest flights here. I don't believe we're necessarily a Southwest hub, but Southwest has more gates at this airport than anybody else. So if you're a Southwest frequent flyer like I am, that's pretty cool. Now, in the state, as far as travel and road trips are concerned, we do have a lot of great state parks. We have the Ozarks, so a lot of people escape the city and run down to either Lake of the Ozarks or the entire southern part of the state's pretty much the Ozarks, from the center part all the way over into the Boot Hill, which is that little squiggly area at the bottom of the state. And people call it the Boot Hill, but it's actually a Boot Heel. But don't correct them because they don't know. Anyways, Herman's another place that's really popular from Kansas City. You can hop on an Amtrak, take a train straight there, or you can drive, and it's a 2.5 hour drive. But it's an old German community. It kind of feels like Germany. Imagine the Germans came here and immigrated. This was an entire population of Germans that built the town. So all the buildings, the old buildings at least, look like they're right out of Germany, which is unique to the area. There's a ton of wineries. People are going there to explore all the wineries. What's cool is you can rent a house, Airbnb down there, and they have this bus that comes by and picks you up at your property. Every half an hour it drives by. So you can hop on a bus, you can hop around all the wineries. You don't have to worry about drinking and driving. We also have Branson, which is a huge popular destination, especially for families. But Branson is evolving quite a bit. We go down there with the kids, sometimes without the kids, and there's a lot more to do. When I was a kid, it was pretty much country music, and that's really starting to change and evolve, and it's becoming a better destination, in my opinion. Lake of the Ozarks, obviously, if you've seen the show Ozarks, it's not actually filmed there, but Lake of the Ozarks is the largest, not the largest lake, but it's the most amount of shoreline of any lake where people live on it in the entire country. So there's a lot of lake houses there. Now, you'll find a lot of people people in Kansas City actually own lake houses and vacation properties within the state. That's because, again, it's 8 hours to major cities. They want a place to get away for the weekend. So you're going to find that a lot of people buy houses in Lake of the Ozarks. They're going to have them right on the water there, but there's other lakes where you can be close to the water, not be right on, like Pomme de Terre or Truman Lake. Table Rock Lake down by Branson are very popular destinations as well. So there's a lot of options in Kansas City. It's just going to be a little bit different than other major cities, especially if you're used to being on the coasts. Now, if you're moving to Kansas City, I bet housing's important to you, so let's make sure we cover that. So first thing you gotta know is that this city is very much a zoned city. So that means there are areas where they only allow single family homes, and there's areas where they only allow single family homes of a certain size, and there's areas that you can only have a house on a certain size lot. So everything's gonna be very much uniform in these areas. That means in certain school districts, there's going to be limited affordability. Now, that's probably not that abnormal, but just don't think you're coming here and you're going to find the city to be laid out in such a way like in Philadelphia, where you've got row house, then a big house and a church and a liquor store, and they're all kind of mixed together. You're going to find neighborhoods here where it's all houses that are all about the same size, and the whole school district's gonna be made up of mostly that. In order to find a more affordable home in those areas, you're probably looking at one of the older homes or maybe a townhouse or a condo. But overall, Kansas City is actually very affordable when you compare it to cities like Los Angeles, Denver, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago. So let's take a second and I'll actually compare what you get for your money here versus some of those cities. All right, let's take a peek at Kansas City compared to some other cities. First off, let's look at Los Angeles. We'll just kind of make our way over. So if we look through here, I'm just taking all of Los Angeles proper. We're not getting real specific here, but we're looking at properties that are priced where I find that most of our relocation buyers are. So somebody coming from Denver, somebody coming from California, they're generally spending above 400, closer to that $500,000 or $600,000 range. And this is not a hard number, but it's just a good idea to show you what you get for your money. So Los Angeles, we'll just kind of run through here. It's 3.2. 1,400 square foot, a 1-1 condo, a 2-2 with 1,100 square foot condo for $550. There's a small 2-1 house that is, I don't know my areas there, so I'm not going to even try, but $575 for a 3-3, a 2-2, a 2-1, a 3-1. All these are smaller houses. That's an 863 square foot, tiny house. Nothing here that's going to be really big for the money. So we all know that Los Angeles is a very expensive place to live. So let's go to Denver and look at that. So again, this is Denver proper. I didn't get specific. We're not into Aurora or anything like that. Again, I don't know these markets. We're just looking at what you get for your money. 560, this is a 5.4. It says it's a big house, 2,800 square foot. It's a 2-car garage. Doesn't look that big to me, but I'm not an expert in that market. 579 for a 4.3, that's 2,300 square foot. It's a little closer to what we get in Kansas City. It's an old house that's not really normal, but most of these you see are going to be no car garages or a 1-car garage or up to a 2. I'm not seeing any 3-car garages in that price point. So let's run over to Nashville. Same thing here, I didn't get specific. We'll just cruise through. A 3.2 that's 1,300 square foot, a 3.2 that's 2,300 square foot. The first one doesn't have a garage. Second one has a 2-car garage. A lot of townhouses, 2-car garage, 2-car garage. 2,700, 3,800 square foot. That probably has a basement. It doesn't look big enough to be 3,800 square foot, so they're probably counting basement there. 600,000 gets you a 3.3, 2,300 square foot. So this is a lot closer to what we're going to have in Kansas City, but not quite. So let's look at what you get in Kansas City. So again, I've done the same thing here. You can see where, if you're searching by price, you can see this is a $600,000 area. That's a $600,000 area. That's a $600,000 area. This area is actually it'd be a fairly cheap house for some of these areas here. You can see there's a lot of new development right through here, but we'll just take a gander. You're going to see a lot of new construction, and you're going to see a lot of 3-car garages. So new construction. This is a large ranch with a 3-car garage there in the Northland by me. Actually, I've been in that house before. This is a 2-story, a 4-4. It's 4,300 square foot in Lee Summit. This here's a duplex, which means you can own both sides of it. One idea, and I have a client right now that's looking to do the same thing, is to buy that property. You know, she wants to have an investment property down the road anyways, so she buys that property first. She can live in one side of it while she gets a grasp of where she wants to live in the city, and then she financed that with owner-occupant financing. Now she turns around and rents it a couple years later. She still gets to keep the same financing and not have to put as much money down like an investor would have to if they weren't going to live in it. So it's an awesome way to house hack is what they call it, and we'll do some more videos that explain that. If that's something you're interested in, definitely reach out to us. We specialize in house hacking. Scroll on down though, but you'll see everything here is pretty much new construction. You get a brand new house with a 3-car garage. That one's probably got acreage with it. So obviously when you look through these, you get a lot for your money. And go ahead and do me a favor and comment down below. Let me know where you live at, and if your area, if you think you get more for your money or less for your money than Kansas City. Now, obviously, when you're moving or buying a property, school districts should have a large impact on you, whether you have kids or not. That's because they definitely affect the value of your property. And I always tell people, when you buy a house, have the end in mind, meaning have an exit strategy. Know that when you go to sell this property, that you're going to be in an equitable position that affords you the opportunity to move to the next chapter of your life, and you don't want that house to be bogging you down because you made a poor decision earlier on in life. So let's talk about Kansas City schools. They're not known for being terrific. Now, they do have their accreditation back, and they are working hard of turning things around, but like most big cities, the urban core generally does not provide the same quality of education that you're going to find in more affluent areas. There are lots of options. Again, most people in our city do not live in the urban core. They're going to live out in suburbs, and we have school districts like Blue Valley, Lee Summit, Parkville, Liberty that are going to be part of that suburb ring, and they're going to have excellently rated schools. And if you go a little further out, you're going to find areas like Smithville, Platte City. They're going to have highly rated schools. It's kind of a more rural area. When I say rural, I mean like 25 minutes from work instead of 15 or 20. Our city really goes rural pretty quick once you get outside of the I-435 ring, especially on the north end of town. And then make sure you look into areas like Gardner. They have a school that has one of the biggest sports programs and the biggest sports complexes that I've seen of those size schools. Of course, big schools like Blue Valley and Liberty have great sports plans as well, but if you like being a little outside of the city, definitely look into Gardner. If you're moving to a new city, you probably want to know what you're going to do with your free time. So let's break into what the locals do when they're not at work. So the first thing you have to understand is that, again, we have weather that can be, say it nicely, uncomfortable at times. So in the summer, again, it's brutally hot, it's very humid. In the winter, it's bitterly cold. So a lot of the activities that you're going to find in Kansas City are going to be indoor activities, with the exception of parks and lakes. So if it's hot, it's nice to be out on a pontoon floating on the water, but outside of that, you're not going to see a whole lot of outdoor activities. There are patios at the bars, but again, when it gets really hot, people kind of stay inside. Again, we don't have mountains or oceans, so a lot of people are used to having that type of large amenity of part of their city. Ours are going to be a little more spread out. So we do have lakes, like Smithville Lakes on the north end of town. There are 6 or 7 lakes out in Jackson County. You've got Blue Springs Lake, Longview Lake, Lake Jacomo, and those are all public lakes that anybody can get on. There's also some private lakes that you could live on or be part of the community and use as well. So if we go past that, pickleball right now is becoming very popular. If you don't know what that is, it is basically tennis with wiffle balls and ping pong paddles, and it's becoming a very big popular sport here. You'll see a lot of the bars are adding pickleball courts off the patio, which we love taking the kids. They play pickleball. We have a few drinks and watch. So you're going to see a lot more of that here. I actually found out recently that one of our clients moving from Nashville, they had never heard of pickleball, so I guess it's not popular in Nashville yet, which surprises me. I assumed it was popular everywhere. So curious if it's popular where you're at. Chime in down below and let us know where you live and if pickleball is popular there. So beyond that, we've got museums. So you can see over my shoulder here, there's that shuttlecock. We'll get into that in other videos, but the Nelson Atkins Museum is a great museum here in town, and they've got these shuttlecocks out in the yard there. When you see it, it'll all make sense, but those are really popular in Kansas City. You'll see those on shirts, on anything that's Kansas City apparel. It's going to have some of those shuttlecocks, and that's what that's from. Sports. So sports in Kansas City, they're king. We've got the Kansas City Royals, we got the Chiefs, obviously. We've got the Sporting KC. Now, all three of those teams have won championships in the last decade, so there's a lot of energy around those teams. We've got the new KC Current coming, which is an all-girls soccer team, and they're building a stadium near downtown for that. Then we've got the Kansas City Mavericks. They are a feeder team to the NHL hockey here in town, and at the same stadium you can find indoor soccer with the Comets. Pretty much sports are on at every bar, and that's what is commonly being talked about in Kansas City. And then outside of that, we go into the bars we talked about earlier. You'll see a lot of activity bars now with like volleyball, pickleball we talked about, but you'll also find a lot of pop-up bars. So especially in the winter, we're looking for things to do. There's lots of these little 1-month pop-up bars that'll have themes. We went to one last year that was decorated like it was The Office, the TV show The Office, and had everybody's desks in the right place. And it was pretty cool. You sat down at a desk and you had a drink. You'll see a lot of those and they're fun, but a lot of the bars are starting to move towards activities, and I think that's just because the weather here can be a little frightful and people need something to do, especially about 5 months a year, and it generally has to be indoors. I was raised eating a lot of macaroni and eating at buffets. So now that I'm an adult, I have better taste buds and I like going out to eat. So some of my favorite places are going to be down in the Crossroads. There's especially a place called Parlor. It's a food hall where local restaurants try out new ideas before they make them permanent locations. It's a really cool way of sampling a lot of the food in Kansas City all in one place. There's lots of barbecue throughout the city, which is what we're famous for. But I'd also recommend going down to like La Bodega or something along the boulevard for Mexican food. And then if you're down in the River Market area, Brown and Low is amazing. Also, if you're landing here at the airport, you'll see there's a Brown and Low inside the airport. So you can always stop in there while you're waiting to fly in or out. Now, when you're moving to a new city, obviously safety is a top concern. So I wouldn't be doing you any favors if we didn't talk about crime. Kansas City was on the FBI's top 10 most violent cities report, I believe, that came out last year. We fell at number 8. So what's interesting about that story, though, is that Chicago and San Francisco, neither one of them made the list. And Springfield, Missouri, a little town in the southwest corner of the state, came in at number 10. So why is that? Well, that's because they're only talking about Kansas City proper, which only makes up 319 miles of the 8,472 miles that actually make up the Kansas City metro. So areas like Parkville, Liberty, Raytown, Independence, Mission Hills, Mission, Roland Park, Shawnee, Olathe, Overland Park, all those types of cities, none of those are included in there, even though that's where most people in the Kansas City metropolitan area actually live. So a lot of people move to Kansas City for its affordability. So let's talk about just a few of the prices. Today, gas was $3.36. That's a big deal in Kansas City that you have affordable gas because you are going to drive most places in Kansas City. It's very much not a walking city unless you live in very specific parts of town, but I guarantee you're going to be driving. Eggs are $2.29 a dozen, so that's awesome. Eggs have been expensive for a while. It's still a little expensive from what we're used to, but they're coming down, and they're coming down fastest and first in the Midwest because we raise chickens in this part of the country. The transportation for eggs is going to be a little bit cheaper. Also, same with milk. Milk's only $2.99 a gallon at Target today. A lot of people want to know, how much money do I have to make? What do I have to earn in order to live comfortably in Kansas City? And there's lots of different reports on this. My opinion is a single person here taking care of just themselves with no dependents, probably $35,000 or $40,000 will give you a comfortable life. That's not necessarily luxury, but that's a comfortable life here. $80,000 to $90,000 is going to be comfortable for a 4-person family, 2 adults, maybe 2 kids, something like that. $80,000 to $90,000. Now, what's going to be considered wealthy or doing better than average? Probably $150,000 to $200,000 is where it really becomes that separation of being able to live in more affluent areas and have a lot of choices. If you make $200,000 a year, there's a lot of awesome homes that you could be looking at. So what are the cons to having very good cost of living? It's just the same thing anywhere else. The costs keep going up, but wages aren't keeping up at the same pace. So the costs are outpacing wages, and you're going to hear people here complain about it. It is painful for them, so I'm not going to discount it. However, when I work with somebody coming from California, they're relieved to see how much they get for their money when they're moving their equity out here, especially if they're able, for one of the 2 people maybe moving out here. I find that a lot of times one of the people gets to keep their job where they were at and work remote. then it's a big win when they can move their equity and keep some of that California or Denver income with them. Again, it's very affordable to live here, but take it with a grain of salt when you hear the complaints about how expensive everything is. So one fun thing you have to know about Kansas City is that we really like ourselves and we wear our own apparel. Now, I'm not positive, but my experience is when you go to New York, New Yorkers aren't really wearing a bunch of New York shirts, and you go to California, they're not really wearing a bunch of Californian shirts, but the tourists are, and we wear them all the rest of the year where we live at. So what is different about Kansas City is we also wear our own tourist shirts basically, and you'll see us wearing shirts like with shuttlecocks on them and with all of our landmarks and with just I Heart KC and so forth. So that's very common. That is because our city really does love itself. We love living here. You'll rarely hear people complain specifically about living in the city. They may complain about taxes, they may complain about potholes, but by and large, people here really enjoy the amenities and the lifestyle. They like the people, and you won't hear a whole lot of complaining, so much so that we're proud to wear our own shirts. Now, one of the worst things about living here is that it's really hard to escape. Meaning when you've lived here your whole life and you're ready to go live in some sunny weather, you're already living in one of the more affordable places in the country. So where do you go from there? Well, generally people are moving to areas like Arizona or New Mexico where it's warm, dry, and there's lots of retirement communities and it's still fairly affordable. You're seeing people move to Costa Rica. We moved a few people in the last couple years down to Costa Rica. A lot of people move down to the lake here in the state, and they'll move into areas outside of the lake that have a lot lower cost of living. And then we recently had somebody move down to Mississippi to take advantage of their lower than Kansas City cost of living. But if you want to turn around and you want to retire out to California, Denver, it's just a lot harder, and you have to make sure that you've really saved up money to offset the difference in that cost of living. It's a lot better to move here from there than for us to move here out there. Now, I promised you in the beginning of the video that I was going to give you a tool at the end that's going to be super useful and help your transition to Kansas City. So here it is. We've developed a quiz that within 10 questions will be able to tell you where your perfect spot in Kansas City is, based on your personality and based on what you like to do in your free time. So go down into the description, I put the link down in there. Let us know in the chat if we got it right for you. Also, go ahead and hit that button and ring that bell while you're still here. That tells the algorithm that we're doing something that you like and we're able to keep dishing these things up for you. I know you hear that in every video, but it really does help us. So if you'll hit that button, ring that bell, really would appreciate it. Now, if you're moving to Kansas City, go ahead, give us a call, text, or email. Our phone number is 816-439-8705, 816-439-8705. Visit our website at plainsparis.com, and we are a full team of full-time agents, no hobbyists. We've been doing this for years and years and years, and we have some programs that I don't know of anybody else that offers, like finding off-market properties, meaning houses that you get to buy before they're ever listed. We do that for our clients. Almost 42% of our buyers last year bought houses that way, and we would love to do the same thing for you. So give us a call and let's get that conversation going. We'll talk to you soon.